Hi guys, it's Andrew from Russia. Today I decided to show you not my own point of view and not the point of view of those Russians that you usually watch. Today I'm gonna explain you how the world is seen by those Russians who support Kremlin and hates West, so probably around 60% of Russians. Much of this image is shaped by propaganda, of course, and I, as a Russian journalist, know how it works quite well. So this is Why Russians Hate West, explanation in 5 minutes. Let's go! So this is Russia, a large and great country that the insidious West wants to destroy. Frankly speaking, we don't know exactly why. One of the versions is to capture our natural resources. Have you ever seen what the Americans did in Iraq, Libya and Syria? This is exactly what awaits us. What countries do we call the West? First of all, the USA and Europe for sure. But in fact, we also include Australia, Japan and any other countries that do not support official Moscow. As for Europe, the Russians sees not so evil as the US, but completely dependent on the will of Washington. Well, and everything is quite complicated with Britain, where the first settlers of America came from. So Britons are also dangerous guys. At the same time, in Europe there is a lot of Russophobia, moral decay and gay propaganda, which is unacceptable for the Russian soul. Most of us have never been abroad, but we have no reason not to believe the Russian media. After all, the sanctions that also affected ordinary citizens confirm this. Why is Russia expanding? As we see the world, NATO is trying to encircle Russia. And the proof is the gradual expansion of NATO to the east. All this is done in order to later place military bases there and then attack Russia. Therefore, we attack for preventive protection. Actually, we don't even attack. We try to save the Russian world and civilians. And the Russian world is any place on this planet where many people speak and think in Russian language. What do we think about liberals? Well, the idea itself is pretty cool, but unrealistic. We don't like Russian liberals because they all serve the West. Western countries are behind all the rallies in Russia. And since the West is our enemy, so are the liberals. By the way, we had a period when the liberals were in power, in the 90s, and it was a completely nightmare. Yeah, there was freedom of speech and all this stuff, but there was also default, unemployment, racketeering, and the plundering of state-owned enterprises. And at that time, the oligarchs appeared in our country. Therefore, we don't want liberals in power again. The strong hand of a true patriot is way better. Why do we support our president? First of all, he has that strong hand. When he became a president, the economic recession of the 90s stopped. The standard of living began to rise. The inhabitants of cities became noticeably richer. Well, then the problems began, but the financial crisis there is to blame. And again, the West countries, of course. By the way, in the 2000s, Putin even tried to make friends with the US and Europe, but the West didn't want to. Putin spoke about this in detail in his famous Munich speech, which became a turning point in the history of Russia. From that time, we are on our own way to development. It was Vladimir Putin who made us feel great and special. The West has finally become afraid of us, and if they are afraid, then they respect. So that was a short review, guys. I want to emphasize that of course there are people who think different or even opposite. This is rather a kind of a collective opinion of the average Russian who supports the official line of Kremlin. So I hope that this will help you to understand how these people see the world and their way of thinking. Also, if you watch my previous video, you will understand better how propaganda is forming different ideas in people. Also, thanks to all of you guys who support my channel, who write comments, who send the donations. This all really means a lot to me. So thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.